Jai. 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 Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita Volume 6, Uniting Two Worlds. The chapter is entitled Chant Hare Krishna and Fight. Not from so-called politicians, said Srila Prabhupada. This is Indian civilization. Formerly, even Lord Ramachandra, who was the king, he is God himself. Still, he used to consult the learned brahmanas, sages, and saintly persons for governmental duties. The divisions of society must be there. There are so many things to be done in Krishna consciousness movement. Don't take that it is simply chanting Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna chanting is the prime factor. Because you chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, then gradually everything will be clear in your mind. Prabhupada told how he had overcome opposition in America and how the people there were taking Krishna consciousness seriously. When he stated his plan for a combination of American money and Indian culture, the people applauded. The real thing is knowledge, Srila Prabhupada concluded. So don't keep this knowledge locked up in your books, but spread it. My only request is that the leaders of India should now come forward and join this movement and take this advantage of doing good to the whole world. Thank you very much. The audience applause swelled into a sustained ovation. Prabhupada's voice had been weak, his body almost motionless, but he had projected a power that had overcome those bodily limitations. His presence was, in fact, more commanding than ever. His energy was obviously the pure energy of the soul, transcendental to the bodily condition. Giriraj Swami called for questions, inviting people to come up and speak into a microphone in front of the stage. Woman is asking, isn't spiritual life very taxing? Prabhupada, do you think that you are not being taxed? Why should you not be taxed for the proper gain? You are being taxed for so many nonsense things. Why not be taxed for the proper thing? That is intelligence. Prabhupada answered the questions. He became more and more forceful, although he remained very still, not even moving his hand. His answers were not as length as usual. He seemed to be saving his energy, but he delivered each answer with intense emphasis and conviction. A well-dressed, middle-aged Indian man stepped forward and asked, Swamiji, what is the importance of health in life, and how do you advise people to maintain health, and how does it connect to your mission? Prabhupada, what is health? First of all, you have to understand that however healthy you may be, you must die. So what problem will you have solved? Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Dushanu Darshanam. Krishna says, it is not my manufacturing. Although you may try to remain very healthy, nature's law is that you must die. How can you help yourself? After all, you have to meet death. So long as you have got this material body, there is no question of health. You must suffer. You may be a very great scientist, but nature's law must act. Prakriti Kriyamanani. Foolish persons, bewildered by false egotism, think, I am improving my health. I am improving this. He is improving nothing. He is completely under the clutches of material nature. He can't act anything independently. That is the law of nature. Another man asked if Prabhupada could solve political problems with this religious basis. Yes, Prabhupada replied. All problems will be solved when we become Krishna conscious. What is the simple solution to understand the soul? Another man asked. I would like to understand the soul. This is very simple, Srila Prabhupada replied, but you are educated so foolishly that you cannot understand. Srila Prabhupada explained briefly that the body is made of material elements, but that there is a superior element. Anyone can understand, he said. Everything is explained in Bhagavad Gita, but people are not serious to understand. His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Prabhupada ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 14, Text number 2. So this is prose, I'm just gonna go through this myself. Yasya mohava ite shad indriyana manaha karmana dasya va evate tadyata purashasya danam yat kinchat dharmaupayakam bahu krichraddigatam sakshat parama purusharadhana lakshano yosav dharmastam tu samparaya udaharanti tad dharmyam danam darshana sparshana shravana spadana vagrana sankalpa vyavasaya grihagram yopabhogena kunatasya jitatmano yata sartasya vilumpati. So word for word, yasyam, in which, uha, certainly, pa, or, ete, all these, shat indriya namanaha, who are named the six senses, the mind and the five knowledge acquiring senses. Karmana, by their activity. Dasyavaha, the plunderers. Eva, certainly. Te, they. Tat, that. Yata, as. Purushasya, of a person. Dhanam, the wealth. Yat, whatever. Kinchit, something. Dharma aupayikam, which is a means to religious principles. Bahu krichura adigatam, earned after much hard labor. Sakshat, directly. Parama Purusha Aradhana Lakshana, whose symptoms are worship of the Supreme Lord by performance of sacrifices and so on. Yaha, which, aso, that, dharmaha, religious principles, tam, that, to, but, samparaye, for the benefit of the living entity after death. Udaharanti, the wise declare. Tat dharmyam, religious, relating to the persecution of the varnashrama dharma. Dhanam, wealth. Darshana, by seeing. Sparshana, by touching. Shravana, by hearing. Asvadana, by tasting. Avagrana, by smelling. Sankalpa, by determination. Vyavasaya, by a conclusion. Griha, in the material home. Gramya upabhogena, by material sense gratification. Kunatasya, of the misguided conditioned soul. Ajita atmanaha, who has not controlled himself. Yata, just as. Sartasya, of the living entity interested in sense gratification. Vilumpanti, They plunder. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the forest of material existence, the uncontrolled senses are like plunderers. The conditioned soul may earn some money for the advancement of Krishna consciousness, but unfortunately, the uncontrolled senses plunder his money through sense gratification. The senses are plunderers because they make one spend his money unnecessarily for seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing, desiring, and willing. In this way, the conditioned soul is obliged to gratify his senses, and thus all his money is spent. This money is actually acquired for the execution of religious principles, but it is taken away by the plundering senses. Report. Purva Jamnarjita Vidya Purva Janmarjitam Danam Agre Davati Davati. By following the principles of the Varnashram Dharma, one attains a better position in the material world. One may be rich, learned, beautiful, or high-born. One who has all these assets should know that they are all meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Unfortunately, when a person is misguided, he misuses his high position for sense gratification. Therefore, the uncontrolled senses are considered plunderers. The good position one attains by executing religious principles is wasted as the plundering senses take it away. By executing religious principles under the laws of Varnashram Dharma, one is placed in a comfortable position. One may very easily use his assets for the further advancement of Krishna consciousness. One should understand that the wealth and opportunity one gets in the material world should not be squandered in sense gratification. They are meant for the advancement of Krishna consciousness. This Krishna consciousness movement is therefore teaching people to control the mind and five knowledge acquiring senses by a definite process. One should practice a little austerity and not spend money on anything other than the regulative life of devotional service. The senses demand that one see beautiful things, therefore, money should be spent for decorating the deity in the temple. Similarly, the tongue has to taste good food, which should be bought and offered to the deity. The nose can be utilized in smelling the flowers offered to the deity, and the hearing can be utilized by listening to the vibration of the Hare Krishna mantra. In this way, the senses can be regulated and utilized to advance Krishna consciousness. Thus, a good position may not be spoiled by material sense gratification in the form of illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. One spoils an opulent position in the material world by driving cars, spending time in night clubs, or tasting abominable food in restaurants. In these ways, the plundering senses take away all the assets that the conditioned soul has acquired with great difficulty. Om Gyanaatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamritamscha. He Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandho Jagatpate, Gopisha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta, Namostute, Tapta Kanchana, Gaurangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanu Sute Devi, Pranamami Hari Priya, Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhuvya Eva Cha, Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yat kripata Muhammad Shri Gurum Dina Taranam. By the mercy of spiritual master, blind man can see the stars, lame man can cross the mountains, and dumb man can speak eloquently. I do offer my respectful obeisance and lotus feet of my spiritual master. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishta Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachayana Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashati Deshatayana. So the translation again. In the forest of material existence, the uncontrolled senses are like plunderers. The conditioned soul may earn some money for the advancement of Krishna consciousness, but unfortunately, the uncontrolled senses plunder his money through sense gratification. The senses are plunderers because they make one spend his money unnecessarily for seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, hearing, desiring, and willing. In this way, the conditioned soul is obliged to gratify his senses, and thus all his money is spent. This money is actually acquired for execution of religious principles, but it is taken away by the plundering senses. So for those who are pious and good people, there's a certain reward, there's some material reward that comes when we look around and we see some wealthy people or famous or very learned, very beautiful, born in aristocratic situations. Sometimes the tendency of conditioned soul is to become envious or jealous of that situation. And there's so many historically political systems that they attack people in a higher position because those in a higher position abuse their position. Then those in a lower position attack, try to take over, create a revolution, try to distribute the wealth that has been abused and taken away by the wealthy. However, anything that is beautiful, there's wealth, etc., all these things doesn't fall from the sky. It's not like some sort of complete accident that people has those kind of facilities. It's only possible by this one essential and crucial principle in this world, that the whole universe, the whole creation starts from this principle. When Lord Brahma sits down in meditation, try to understand his source that he couldn't find and ascertain, he heard this word tapa. Tapa means sacrifice, austerity, struggle. So Brahma sat down and performed the sacrifice for thousands of years, and then he got revelation of Krishna. So this principle is there. In Bhagavad Gita also it says, without sacrifice, one cannot be happy, neither in this life nor in the next. And even in material world, the materialistic people has understood the same principle, which is called No pain, no gain. So if you see people who has got wealth or beauty or knowledge, fame, that means they worked very hard. That means they perform sacrifice, and is not necessarily in this life, because some people you can see they're born with a silver spoon in their mouth or a golden spoon in their mouth. Is it this means that they just like very fortunate? No, that means they actually performed some sacrifices in their past life. Either they were very religious and pious, they may have uh, helped old people, is described as a very, very pious activity, helping old people, feeding the poor, planting the trees, helping people in various kinds of ways, and working hard as well, struggling. Some people work so hard in this life and they're not getting anything, because in a past life they squandered it, as we read in this verse. There is a tendency to squander when you become wealthy. So some people work very, very hard and they're just not getting anything. That's part of their hard work, working 3 jobs, barely, still barely struggling to connect, how you call it, survive, barely struggling to survive. And some people, as we said, seem to be born with a golden spoon in their mouth, born in the royal family, for example, from very childhood, being like a fed with the best food, with the nicest clothing, etc. Has so much property. It doesn't have to really work, but go for university just for the sake of it, etc. So that means they worked very hard in the past life and they've been very, very pious, been good people. So wherever we see beauty, beautiful people, wherever we see wealth, wherever we see fame, wherever we see knowledge, very educated, some people are very, very educated, scientists, PhDs, etc. That means been pious in their past life, worked very hard, uh, been religious, or just hardworking, or a combination of both, been kind of good people, helping others, helping the planet, etc. But what happens with all that accumulation of wealth, if any of you had experience of any of this kind of opulences in whatever form you came, maybe you were, you know, you got this lots of money in the lottery, or maybe you received your first salary, and like a teenager gets like £1,000, or you like went to this hairdresser and you come out, you think I'm looking great, and everybody's looking at you with this new hairstyle, and you think, wow, this person is the nicest man or nicest lady in the class or a village. Shishikodantai, Maya Pushashiki, Jai. Or you learn something and you just able to very nicely perform in your class in school, or you learn some shlokas and you recited the shlokas, or you give like a nice class or something. Everybody is thinking, wow, is tapping you on the back of your back and saying, the class was great, or whichever, yeah, rich learnedness, yeah, or so all those things. As soon as you get it, what happens? People start to praise you, start to look at you, or become envious of you. Or you got this car. Like I was at university, my parents bought me Volkswagen Golf. It was like, now it's like a prehistoric. It was still in my first year. There's only few people who had a car actually at university, but they had a Volkswagen Golf. Just a few of us actually were studying management, so there was like a children of rich parents were studying management in those days. So there's a few of us with the cars, but mine car was the worst. But back in my village where I was from, with my car, I was like a main person with this little car. So the tendency is to become puffed up with the beauty. I'm the most beautiful girl in the class. I'm the strongest. Oh, that's another wealth. Men, they like to, the ladies as well, they like to work on their muscles, and they look in the mirror and they walk around and etc. They get a lot of attention, with these big muscles and etc. And there is a tendency to become puffed up. People are showing attention to you. You're becoming a little famous for something. You got good singing, etc. Your nose goes up. You start to look down at others. You think I'm the best. I'm the most beautiful and most strong or wealthy in whatever situation. And there is a tendency to squander that wealth, because the senses are demanding, the ego is demanding. So there's a tendency to squander and waste whatever things we acquire because we work hard in this life and the previous life. There's tendency to squander this wealth because the senses are demanding. The soul is looking for happiness, anandamaya sat, and that soul is trying to capture this happiness through the senses in this forgetfulness position in material world. It doesn't know anything apart of what comes through the eyes, through the nose, through the trunk, through the ears, through the sense of touch. And whenever one gets money, is thinking she's thinking to gratify those senses. The senses are demanding, and it seems like those who are more wealthy, they have a more opportunity to fulfill desires and to gratify their senses, and they look that they are more happy. But the more you get, the more senses are demanding. The greed is growing. The more you have, the more you want. The greed is demanding. Or if you have very beautiful, the beauty is fading. The beauty only lasts up to a certain stage, and then you have endeavor so hard to maintain it. This beauty industry is multi billion now, to preserve, to try to stop the time. Plastic surgery is multi-billion to try to fix or adjust some forms of your body that are seem to be not right, or something is missing. Try to adjust. It's a multi-billion industry. Beauty. So all this wealth, this material opulences, it requires so much hard struggle to maintain it, and one can squander very easily to maintain one's beauty, to maintain one's strength, no matter how powerful you are. Muhammad Ali, who was at one point considered one of the most strongest people in the world, he was knocking down his opponents, were in trembling in fear, but eventually he also lost the battle. So, in order to maintain our position, whatever the opulence we may have, and when the goal is sense gratification, when we have those opulences that been given to us by the law of karma and ultimately sanctioned by the Supreme Lord, we cannot get anything, no matter how hard we work. We tend to take credit. But anything, whatever happens, whatever we get is always sanctioned by the Supreme Lord. Even if it's just a karmically, still Lord maintains the supreme position of that not even a blade of grass moves without the sanction of Krishna. So whenever we get that beauty, whatever it may be, wealth, learnedness, fame, uh, beauty, strength, all those things are not meant for sense gratification. They're not meant to gratify our senses, because as soon as we engage all those things in gratification, then it's squandered, it gets lost. And this is the history. If you look let's say this for example's sake, if there's a person that you can see in this life, he gets the money, and actually it happens all the time. She or he gets the money and squanders it over the weekend, goes to the nightclub, pub, spends all the money and nothing on Monday, and again works very hard throughout the week, gets the money on the weekend, and spends all the money again. So that's very wasteful. Considered like irresponsible life. It doesn't look at our family, doesn't pay for the mortgage or whatever, doesn't buy a house, but just squanders everything what it gets, works hard, gets it, and then squandered it. It's considered very irresponsible. So this is our history of our existence in this material world. Let's look beyond this one life. Let's look in unlimited lives we had in this material world. The history of our life in this material existence is a yo-yo. It's a yo-yo program. In one life, we work very hard. In the next life, we become rich, we become famous, become beautiful, we're very knowledgeable, and we become puffed up. We look down at others, we step on other people's heads, and we create a lot of bad karma. So like a yo-yo, yo-yo is down, struggling, and then it comes up back up, and then again down in the next life, just up and down, up and down. And even if you are very pious person, maybe use this wealth in helping people, uh, distribute your wealth, etc. But then that helps another person's body. You can see we have, actually I was looking the other day, in Scotland there are, how many charities?
26,000.
There's 26,000 charities in Scotland. There's going to be more in UK. So it's wonderful, helping people. We should try to help alleviate their physical and mental suffering. However, the nature of this material world, the nature of this material existence is that suffering cannot be alleviated by this physical adjustment because of the karma that we create. We offend others, we hurt others, we squander money, we are envious of others, etc., etc. So just by charitable work, what cannot solve the problem of material existence, and that's what Prabhupada as well we just read in the uh, Srila Prabhupada's biography. So, so it cannot be resolve those problems just by material adjustment. Even if we are the most kindest person, we distribute this wealth. We're not using for our own gratification. However, we're using for other people gratification. So we are not, necessarily squandering our own senses, but we're trying to gratify other people's senses. So that keeps, those people, while it is helping alleviating the physical, mental pain, is still keeping them under the material conditions, and that help, while give some relief for the time being, because those others may have this bad karma. We are up in this life, and others are down in this life. So because we were very good person and maybe we're still good in this life, we are alleviating the suffering of those who didn't had such a good karma. But then again, you take birth, another birth, and they take another birth, and again back into the womb, back to educational system, and again either suffering your good bad karma, or again going up. And this is the yo-yo program since time immemorial, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's not the way to go. Even in this life, you see people who go that direction is not the really way to go. And if you look in this many lives, it's not a really way to go. It's actually foolish. It's actually crazy. And Einstein said, and actually Adokshiji, I believe, quoted it not so long ago, I remember in a class, that it is foolishness to do the same thing and expect different result. So we've been very, very wealthy. We've been very, very beautiful. We've been very famous. We've been extremely knowledgeable, and we also been down. But are we satisfied? Is the problem solved? It's not. And we can look at the people who do have those opulences. Are they really satisfied? And we look at their qualities. Does those things actually make them nicer people? In some cases, yes. But in many cases, not. And sometimes even in our own life, we go through a stage when we are, have something better than others, and we're going through this very arrogant stage, and it's not a happy time. When you look back, in our arrogant stage of life, when we are kind of riding on a wave of some opulence in some small or big way, and the people were envious of us or something. It's not really happy days. It's quite lonely time. It's quite a miserable time. Or maybe we had to share with someone, but generally speaking, and many people now will admit to you, because of social media and etc. Now, not so many people hide it. They're starting to opening up. Actually, this wealth, like, I saw a little bit of interview of Jay Shetty Ganchan Priya with Will Smith. He said he was military. He was achieving from this childhood. His father and mother trained him in this military life. Everything, every minute in his life was counted for a certain goal. Every minute in his life he was working and breaking down to achieve a certain goals. He envisioned himself, to become one of the best actors. He analyzed what kind of films attract the most attention. It was sci-fi films, which he got into sci-fi industry, and he was working like anything to achieve those goals. And got this beautiful wife and beautiful children, and he was achieving all his goals like anything. But he said, we were miserable. He was like Iron Man, back in home at his family, and the family was suffering, children were suffering, and while materially was, extremely successful, wealth, fame, beauty, very intelligent as well, super intellectual, having all those opulences. Of course, is nowhere near to Krishna, and will never living entity can compare to Krishna. Extremely successful. And it says the whole family, he was extremely miserable, his family members were extremely miserable, and he was asking him, why you are not happy? We have everything. We have unlimited success. Why are you are not happy? He was demanding the answer from them. Why you're not happy? We got everything. And he said it was one of the most miserable times of his life. Many people will admit to you. There's not the way to go. We should not be illusioned. Our desires, if you look in our heart, there are aspirations for wealth, there are aspirations for fame, there are aspirations for beauty. There are those things in the heart to a smaller or bigger degree. But if you get this, you won't be satisfied. So we should not be in illusion. This is what is called Maya, that which is not. We have some hope that I'm gonna become very educated, I'll be happy, I'm gonna become famous, wealthy, whichever, strong, and that will satisfy me. No, your senses will squander all that beauty, will squander your wealth, your fame will be squandered sooner or later. Will be left with nothing, and even if you manage to maintain a certain degree of this, the death will take everything away, and you're left with zero, with nothing. You are born in the next life naked. You come out of the womb, you have absolutely nothing. And if you actually squandered everything and abused it, then in the next life you won't even have any of those. There's a good chance if you squander it, because if you squander something that is given to you, that then it means you have no right to have it. Whatever you're given, if you abuse it, why you should expect to be given it again? There's a very strong law of karma. If you squander what you've been given, that means in the future you will have nothing. So that's why actually whatever we have, we should use it properly. We should not squander it. Krishna's property, etc. We should use it very properly and nicely, because whenever we squander, that means we're depriving ourselves in the future. So all those opulences actually are coming ultimately from Krishna, and is not meant to use for our gratification. They are meant for use in Krishna's service. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, she is the eternal servant of Krishna. It's not to be used in our service. We should not engage the goddess of fortune, the supreme consort of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, his expansion of Krishna in his most opulent form. We should not use Lakshmi in our service. It's not meant for that. It's not appropriate. Because if you do, then the same energy of Lakshmi becomes transferred into Durga. Durga means it's a goddess of this material energy, or Parvati is the eternal consort of Shiva. Not eternal, but just for this material creation is a consort of Shiva. And Durga means difficult. Durga means difficult. As soon as you try to use Lakshmi in your own service and self gratification, it means difficult. It turns into energy. There's so much trouble to maintain it, to protect it, anxiety, where I'm gonna lose it, or where it's gonna get squandered by maybe kids or something. Maybe you are using the money wisely, but we've seen it so many times. The kids squander the wealth of their parents, or some rich aristocracy, get into gambling, squander everything. There's so much anxiety to maintain that wealth and etc. So it's actually meant for using in Krishna service. Whatever opulences we've been given, we worked very hard in the previous life, in whatever small or big way. If we have any strength, then use it to work hard for Krishna. Is meant in Krishna service. Then it is a perfection. Then we won't take another birth. Use the strength in Krishna service. Whatever fame you have, whatever influence you have in terms of fame in your village, in your circle of friends, in your city, whichever the case may be. Like Felix is a little famous in Manchester, and this on the market street. You know him as the Goranga man or whichever. So now we had a few people actually contacting us that Felix gave a flyer over the last couple of years. Like 2 or 3 people were very keen to come actually and explore what is this Krishna consciousness is all about. This is a very good way to use fame. Then whatever knowledge you have, whether you've been to school, whether you've been to university, whether you have PhD, is not for you. If you use it for yourself, it's a waste. Prabhupada many times is actually many zeros. Why it is called zeros? Because it's a yo-yo. In this life, you're very knowledgeable, you become puffed up, and there is this so much going on in this as well in the universities that some professors and researchers, they almost falsificate the various results so that they can get some money or funding and etc. And all that is lost. All that knowledge is lost and become puffed up. In the next life, you may not have any knowledge, any understanding, become full. It's not meant for us. It's meant for Krishna service. We are very knowledgeable. Then become a teacher, share this Krishna consciousness, or somehow or another, if you got this high education, people will take it seriously. If you have PhD, This is the very big thing in the modern world. People are respected with PhDs. People will listen to you. Then you have this opportunity to actually share the holy name, share Krishna consciousness in some way and form and shape. Help the young generation that is looking actually for solutions and also being misled. Give them spiritual knowledge, give them a future life instead of squandering another life. They can actually get better understanding how to actually achieve a true wealth. Golokera Prema Dana Harinama Sankirtana. The greatest wealth is the holy name of the Lord. There is no greater wealth than the holy name of the Lord, because by getting Krishna is the greatest jackpot. The whole wealth of the world is not equal to one speck of dust at the lotus feet of Krishna. Whatever beauty you have, use it in Krishna service. If you are beautiful, people will become attracted to you. But then, what you're gonna use this attraction to look at me, or you can use the same attraction. Look at Krishna. People may be attracted to your beauty and say, yes, but look at Krishna, the source of all beauty. So you can introduce people to Krishna consciousness. I believe Prabhupada once said that dancing ladies in a circle in a kirtan will attract hundreds of fallen conditioned souls to this Krishna consciousness. And so that beauty can be also used to attract people to Krishna consciousness. And then you introduce them. They come maybe for a wrong reason. They are attracted to our external physical beauty. But then we introduce them to Krishna, to ultimate source of beauty. So in that way, we are using our beauty for the way it should be used, is connecting to Krishna. So this is how all those opulences are meant to be used in Krishna service. And by doing that, our heart becomes purified, we become truly happy, and we awaken in due course of time by association of devotees, pure devotion to Krishna, and that is the greatest wealth. There is nothing greater than pure devotion, because only through pure devotion, the unconquerable, the most famous, the most beautiful, the most attractive, the most strongest person who otherwise is unconquerable, he becomes attracted. By this pure devotion, we can conquer and attract the Supreme Lord Himself. He becomes eternally indebted in loving relationship with us. There is no greater wealth than this. So I'll stop here. Actually, we run out of time, so there is no time for questions. If you have any questions, you can maybe ask at Prasadam table. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Gaura